There's no turning back now. It's like that moment when the wheels lift off the ground, when the plane rotates, when V1 is achieved. That's what you're hearing right now. It's another episode of Swing Thoughts, a very special episode. Last week was episode 300 as we embark on our next, I don't know, will we get to 600? I don't know, but you can't get to 600 without episode 301. Welcome, everyone. It's Humble Howard, golf spiritual leader, as you know, and, of course, Coach Tim O'Connor, o'connorgolf.ca. As always, a pleasure to be here with you, sir, and lots of fun, lots of congratulatory whatever for our 300th episode.
Yeah, a lot of laudatory comments.
Yeah.
I think most people are amazed you made it to 300. Holy crap, that is a lot of podcasts. A lot of yammering on about golf.
And I don't know what sounds, I don't even know the word is impressive, but what sounds bigger, episode 301, or as we begin, or I think this ends our 10th year of doing this, because the very first one was in December of 2015. So we're coming up to 10 years. Mm-hmm. And today I want to mention again, this program brought to you by Par for Success. I will explain later after we exhaust our guest some of the gains that I've been making over the last month or so, ever since we had Chris Finn on the show and I started working their program, and it is quite something. But let's get right to it. A couple of years ago, we discovered this gentleman, and we discovered him. And we found this young fella. We found this obscure mental performance coach who had just written a book called Golf Beneath the Surface, the new science of golf psychology. And from humble beginnings, he has turned into a podcast megastar. Mm-hmm. Please welcome back to this program, Dr. Raymond Prior. Hello, Ray.
I don't know that I've properly thanked either of you for discovering me, and
it's okay.
Okay. Unearthing me like you were walking down the beach with a metal detector. And
that's right. No, a mental detector.
A mental detector. Yeah, that's great.
You're better than that.
No, congratulations. I don't know what to congratulate you more on, 300 episodes and now 301, or the fact that you referenced the Bernoulli effect of airplanes and how they take off the ground. That's pretty big deal.
There's an old saying in aviation, how do you know you have a pilot at your party? Oh, don't worry, he'll tell you.
He'll let you know. Okay,
he'll let you know. I'm impressed you brought up the Bernoulli effect, which is a famous Italian scientist who identified basically lift. He identified how airplanes actually go into the air through this effect of laminar flow over the wings. How about that for a reference? Or a smart guy?
How about that? Yeah. Wow.
You know what? I'm just going to let you two people just prattle on, because I'm just a guy from a small city.
It's just some aviation. You know what it is? It's just some aviation nerddom. Anyway, Ray, I've been listening to a lot of Ray lately. Ray and another gentleman named Chase. Is it Chase Cooper?
Chase Cooper, that's my co-host on our Golf Beneath the Surface podcast. Good friend, and by far the tallest golf coach I've ever met.
Yeah, way too tall, really.
Yeah, he is. It's alarming how tall he is at times.
So even though you and I haven't kept in touch for a couple of summers, I did reach out to you and ask you to come on the show. I've been listening to a lot of your podcasts, and it's great, and I have a lot of friends that listen to it. And I would just start by, again, thanking you for doing this. I know you get asked a lot, and you've always been very good with us, and me especially. So in the couple years since we've discovered you, and Golf Beneath the Surface now a couple years old, how have you found the landscape of mental performance in general? Has it made a difference? Have you noticed a difference? Have you seen a difference in clients you've worked with?
Yeah, there's an evolution in the quality of psychology that is happening. I think there's a bit of a groundswell. A lot of golf is being driven by science in a lot of different ways. And I think we might have mentioned this the last time I was here, like the psychology has got a long way to catch up behind it. There's so much neuroscience and so much psychological science that is kind of just old man wisdom type of stuff that's been operating for psychology in golf and in a variety of sports for a long time. It's a very low bar. So there is a groundswell. going on. What I can tell you about the book is it's doing really well, particularly with professional and high level players. I'm not sure how exactly they track all that, but what it seems to be resonating very strongly with people who are really looking to try to get better and understand how their brain is working. And when their brain is working better, they tend to operate better as well.
If I may just jump back in, I have a friend who he's a guy at my golf course who has gotten steadily better. He retired a few years ago and has dedicated himself to the game. And he and I were at a tournament in Montreal last week, and I told him, I said, hey, I know you've read Ray's book, and I'm going to have Ray on the show next week. Anything you wanted to say? And he said, well, and this is a quote, he said, tell him I read the book, and he's a good player. He's like probably a 2 or 3 handicap. He said, I read the book, started meditating, and then he won an event like a couple weeks later. And I said, that's amazing, Bill. I said, I'm sure, I was going to say, I'm sure Ray would be happy to hear that, but it's the kind of thing I'm sure you hear all the time, that maybe your book, Golf Beneath the Surface, might have been an introduction to someone like my friend to the idea of mindfulness in a meditative state.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think if you're trying to be a high performer, and by the way, just a happier, healthier human being, awareness is the first line of information processing for us for all. So if we are not paying attention, we're just very reactive in our world rather than being proactive in things. And so mindfulness training is not trying to learn how to be Zen and I'm never disrupted by anything internal or external. It's learning how to pay attention to them in a way where you can respond to them or choose not to respond to them in a way that is in your best interest. So it's a very proactive, non-judgmental way to pay attention. And the amount of research behind people who practice mindfulness, who are happier, healthier, higher functioning, more consistent people, it's not because they have some magical Zen state that they're operating in all the time. They're just paying attention to themselves and the world in a way that allows them to choose their own path more often.
Is it your sense, good doctor, that so much of what's been passed on as golf psychology, et cetera, is just kind of like swing tips? It's like, oh, breathe, keep your eyes on the horizon. Is part of what you were getting at with beneath the surface is let's drop down below that stuff and let's get into what's real. Like, let's be aware of what's happening in your body, how your heart is beating. Was that part of your intention?
To a degree, like again, imagine that the predominant performance psychology in golf has been the equivalent of keep your head down, right? Like, okay, maybe that applies to 1% of people. For the most part, it applies to nobody. And it doesn't actually work with how a body is moving in the golf swing. Like there's nobody now who is worth their salt in teaching, who is teaching people to keep their head down, right? Most of the psychology that has been peddled in any field, by the way, not just golf, has been, I would just say this, it's surface level enough that it sounds kind of good here, but it doesn't actually match how our brain operates. Right? Imagine you're on the first tee and you're feeling some anxiety and I tell you to just relax. Well, on the start, oh, okay, I'm feeling anxious. The opposite of that is relaxed. Technically speaking, no, it is not, based on how our brain operates. And so if the psychological instruction and or purveying is this kind of surface level, it sounds really good, but does it actually match what our brain actually does and how it operates? Now what happens is it's not only ineffective, or if it is effective, it's only a short-term placebo effect, but I actually run the risk of doing something counterproductive to you, if not damaging. Right. So imagine again, if it was a swing, it would be, I'm teaching you to swing in a way where, yeah, when you time one up from time to time, it's going to be nice. But for the most part, I'm making it more difficult for you to deliver the club effectively. And I'm also increasing your odds of injury. We would be like, okay, well, that's not very good. Let's do something better. I would just say psychology has been lagging behind in golf for a couple of decades of the people who are providing psychology, myself included in the beginning of my career, of understanding what is the most recent research about how the brain and the human condition operates in a high performance setting like golf. And the good news is, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Howard.
No, you go ahead. Finish your
I was
thought.
going to say, the good news is there is so much great research going on right now. We have never understood more about human psychology, the human nervous system, the neurological impacts, and so on and so forth. Like, we have a lot of really good information that can help people be happier, healthier, higher functioning human beings, provided we are willing to do it. The challenge is it's not always as straightforward as just relax. It's actually asking the question, well, why are you so anxious right now to begin with?
That you need to relax.
That's like, well, not just relax. Like, we don't really need to be relaxed to perform well. And I would dare say that, like, you're playing in a golf tournament that you care enough about to have signed up for it. Being relaxed is not really the objective. But again, we don't need to operate out of anxiety. So the question isn't like, or the instruction isn't just be relaxed or pretend you don't care or just, chill out or whatever. It's actually like, why is it you feel the need to bring so much anxiety to this in the first place that is keeping you from pursuing the things you want in the ways that you while, yes, under pressure and stress?
And I was going to say, and maybe that's a good place to sort of go back in time. It's been a couple years since you've been our guest. And I've been talking to some friends, like I said, a few people I've had conversations with about this book. And one of the things that this guy I spoke to last week, this is a conversation we had in the parking lot of the hotel. We were talking about, he said, the first third of the book is this, and I'm going to warn everybody, if you're looking for something, if you're looking for a popcorn movie, this ain't it. This is I like to say this is a weightier tome. And my friend and I were talking about the first fifth of the book, to be fair, is a pretty deep dive into just the human brain itself, how our brains are worked and wired, and how they work and wired, I should say, how they're wired and they work. You set a foundation.
Yeah.
You give the reader and the listener of your show, of your podcast, you give us a sort of a fundamental background of why we are the way we are, and then how it applies not just to golf, because I don't know if many people know that Ray not just works with golfers, but other athletes and other high-level performers, both in business and entertainment, but here on this golf show. So maybe give us a little bit of background, and then if you can segue how that brain, the way we're wired, why it works against us sometimes, and how it can work for us in golf.
Yeah. So technically speaking, it's never working against us. It might be working against our desired pursuits. So our brain is, if you think about our brain, again, no one needs to be a neuroscientist to really perform at a high level. However, having a basic understanding is kind of important. So if I was going to simplify it a little bit here, it's important to understand every organ in our body, including our brain, the priority for it is first and foremost survival. The reason our lungs bring in oxygen and move it around and our heart pumps up is first and foremost to stay alive. Our brain's first and foremost and overriding function is always going to be survive, meaning protect us from the things that either are a threat to us or the things we tell it are a threat to us. It will default to protection and survival if we give it a reason to do so. That's important for people to understand, because often, like, why am I getting anxious? Why do I always fall into this pattern? Why do I always? Because your brain's doing its primary task, which is trying to keep you alive or protected from the things that you have told it to be protected from. The second thing that it does is it runs whatever tasks we ask it to run. So, for example, if I'm on the first tee and the task I give my brain is do not get embarrassed in front of these people, that is not a negative thought. It is a protection, avoidance-based task that now goes to the top of the priority list for my brain. So why does my golf swing get disrupted and I always suck on the first tee? Because you're not actually trying to play a good golf shot on the first tee. You're trying to not get judged by other people and be embarrassed, and your brain is doing exactly what you're asking it to do. Mm-hmm. So oftentimes players tell me, well, what's wrong with me that my brain is doing this? Like, your brain is not malfunctioning. It is functioning exactly how it is designed to function. When you tell it, save me from this while I'm doing this, the first is a protection-based task at the top of the priority list. The second is a pursuit-based endeavor that is now on the back burner, because, again, that's exactly how our brain is designed. So if we understand just kind of the basics about how our brain works, it helps us understand ourselves and our experiences and the patterns that we are in certain situations, what triggers us, what core beliefs are contributing to that. Understanding the brain is the foundation to, well, then how do I operate, but from my perspective, differently? No different than if you don't really understand how the human muscular system and skeletal system works, very difficult to understand the golf swing because you don't know how joints move and so on and so forth. So again, it's just a basic foundation of how does the human brain operate, then plays a significant role in, well, then why do I experience the things I do or get the similar patterns that I would that may or may not be valuable for my pursuits?
Yeah. So many I would say most of the listeners of this show know that having a thought like, don't embarrass yourself or don't hit it in the water, that stuff just doesn't work for them. It doesn't work, period. So, how would you advise golfers, whether it be average or to tour level, that when they have the thought, is it a matter of being just using their, not just, but their awareness, like, oh, this is going on. I need to respond in a different way.
Yes, to your point, everything starts with awareness. So again, we have referenced mindfulness practice before. A mindfulness practice helps train me and my brain to recognize those types of thoughts, which again are just avoidance-based tasks for my brain sooner. Having that thought is of zero consequence to my golf game. Me playing a golf shot dictated by that thought is what causes the disruption, right? So the key is, first, can I recognize it? And I need to recognize it for what it is, which is just an avoidance-based task. However, it's not one that I have to follow. It's not a fact. It's not a precursor to the future. It's just an idea. And if I can see it as that, then what I can do is introduce a different task to my brain. Oftentimes what that includes is understanding that I need to increase my level of acceptance for the things that I don't want. And again, here's how it works with our brain. What acceptance means is that it doesn't mean that I would like it. It doesn't mean I would be satisfied with it. It doesn't mean I wouldn't feel a certain way about it. Doesn't mean I'm comfortable. Doesn't mean I'm certain. Doesn't mean I don't care or that I'm not motivated. What it means is that I'm open to the possibility of perhaps experiencing that. What that does for my, again, survival protection first brain is takes that task off the table. Don't take my word for it. For anyone listening, when you have played your very best golf, how much have you been asking yourself or your brain to avoid the things you don't want to happen? And the answer is not at all. Now, there could be a variety of reasons for that. Maybe I just felt like my swing was in a place where I just can't miss. Okay, fine. But most of the time, even if we're taking flow state as a frame of reference, flow state is immersion in the task at hand with no avoidance-based tasks attached to it. So it's not be present and also prove to other people how good you are and don't get judged, or don't hit it this way or don't hit it that way, don't three putt, don't whatever. Again, not negative thoughts, avoidance-based tasks. So for anyone who goes, oh man, this hole always eats my lunch, I would ask, well, how many times do you play that hole? Multitasking between don't play it poorly and try to play it well.
Yeah.
And if I become more open to the thing that I don't want to happen, then my brain doesn't have that on the task list. And now I can actually be present and pursuing the task that I want to. Now, there might be a little bit of psychological work behind that, addressing the question, well, why is it that I am not allowing for this possibility of failure or judgment? So there's a little bit of work there that might be involved, but that is what's happening neurologically in our brain. So essentially, acceptance is a neurological and psychological non-negotiable for pursuit.
In the book and in the time that we've spent together, we talk. You talk a lot about confidence, stable and otherwise, and I think it's analogous. Kind of in the golf swing itself. One of the first things I'm sure, and Tim, you can attest to this as a guy that instructs golf swings occasionally as well. The thing a student always says is, "I'm looking for consistency." What they really mean is predictability, I think. And I think some ways in the world of golf psychology, and we've been doing this show for a long time, I think a lot of people are looking to you and others for stable confidence to be given to them as opposed to earned and understood.
Sure. And let's get an operational definition. Stable confidence, by definition, is self-given permission to perform freely without a guarantee. What that means is I have not externalized my freedom of operation to an outcome, other people's opinions, my past, my future. So I'm not outsourcing my freedom of operation to something else, even including how I might feel or how I might think. So what makes confidence stable is you stop putting it into a bunch of things that are not very stable. Right. And so to your point, if we're using the golf swing as an analogy, well, what people are looking for is a more consistent, predictable pattern of ball flight that typically comes from a more consistent and stable club face. Now, by definition, no club face is totally stable, but when it becomes more stable, It's more consistent, more predictable, and ultimately you can figure out how to navigate with it more. Most people are not playing freely enough, often enough to even really know what their golf swing does, nor how they handle, pressure, because what they do under pressure, because of the things they've outsourced their confidence to, when they get in situations where those are no longer available to them, they don't operate very freely. So the challenge here is there's nothing I can tell you that is some pithy catchphrase like just relax or just trust it, whatever, that actually creates that stability, because again, it's trying to create comfort, certainty, and control. And in most situations under pressure, those are not available to us.
Well, and I was going to say too, like, and the idea of what we've talked about, awareness being curative. I love that saying, but also the idea that nobody can give you that confidence, and that ultimately, and again, there's a lot of stuff in the book. I have the book in front of me, and I was thinking of things we could talk about, but when I say that confidence, stable or otherwise, is earned, that's the work that needs to be done, so that awareness and acceptance, the idea that I'm okay, that I'll be okay, whatever outcome happens to show up today, is kind of well, at least I can say from my own experience. And I sent you a note saying that in the last couple of years, I've enjoyed golf more overall, because my enjoyment of the day and the game is no longer predicated by how my golf swing and game and scores show up. It's more now in a world of gratitude, and the idea that, if any golf round, including the one I'm about to play, if this were my final round, how would I want that experience to be? And I would want it to be not completely predicated on the number I shot. And that's something I didn't really understand. I get it now.
We learn confidence at a young age via outcomes, and sometimes very systematically, particularly if you grow up in American sport, where you hit a home run or you score a goal or you shoot a certain score in golf and someone tells you good job. So by definition, the kids are just kind of learning, oh, good outcome means I should feel a certain way about it. We also do this in our academic stuff. So it's not a surprise why we attach our confidence to outcomes. And oftentimes as adults, if we want to operate more freely and enjoy things more and be more consistent, we have to unpair from those outcomes, which doesn't mean they're not important to us, that we're not pursuing really good outcomes, or that those don't have some impact in our lives, but we are not paired to them personally. And what that does is it takes avoid poor outcomes off the task list from our brain. And now you can actually be present in a round of golf. You are not pulled up and down and around like a kite on a string by any outcomes in your round. Like, I made a bogey here, I had a couple of tough holes, and now the day is destroyed. Like, basically attaching your emotional state and your confidence to outcomes. Like, you are you're being held hostage by something by choosing to be a hostage. We often learn that, though, Howie, at a young age. Most people do, especially in our modern culture, where we're in a bit of an outcome first culture, for better or for worse. And what we see is that high performers at some point start to learn to unpair from that, which gives them way more freedom. This, again, doesn't mean they don't care about outcomes or aren't pursuing them. They're not beholden to them.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Unpairing from outcomes is great.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of high performers, I got to think, Raymond, you watched the Ryder Cup on the weekend.
Sorry for your loss. Not sorry.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
I had feet in both camps.
Yeah,
so.
I'm sure you do.
I'm sure you do.
I'm sure you do.
But one of the things that was so striking to me, particularly when I watched Rory and Shane, how they were able to pull themselves in and out of the interactions with the fans. That was just insane, abusive. I can't believe how shitty a lot of those fans operated. But the ability of that pair to be able to occasionally, give it back, an FU too, but then to go to high performance. But I don't know, when you were watching it, Raymond, what particularly when you watched Sunday, let's maybe focus on Shane Lowry. If you could just maybe, what do you think was going on for him in terms of that 18th hole? Russell Henry hits, one of the shots of his life.
That was an incredible shot from Russell.
12 feet, and then Shane gets up there, and then, and like you talk about awareness of what's going on. Like, I got to think that Shane Lowry must have been shaking his body or something in
Yeah.
trying to make that putt. Anyways, what did you think, sir?
We can make an educated guess that Shane knew exactly what was on the line,
Absolutely.
what that would mean
Oh,
for
he knew.
him, and
He
that
knew
his
it.
nervous system was firing on all cylinders because of that. So if we were going to say, like, instead of me telling you, hey, bud, just relax, I'm sure this will be okay, which he would probably
No way.
flip me the bird and karate chop me in the throat. We might say that there was some level of, I need to get into this task without any other avoidance. So it's not, I need to feel a certain way or turn off what you're, it's just, this putt is on this line at this speed, give it a run. Let's go see what happens. So what that, again, give it a run and see what happens sounds on the surface like, well, kind of laissez-faire. But to your brain, it goes, you mean all of this going on in the environment, the consequences and the risk tag, I don't need to save you from any of that. You're just going to do this and we're going to see how it goes. Okay. Then when he actually goes, well, actually, I just want to start this putt on this line and do it. His brain actually has the bandwidth to be able to do that. Right. So what we might notice from there is if you go into that environment, hoping that it's not going to be what it is, hoping that it's going to be, conducive to your performance, or like, good luck. Your brain is going to be just on fire, and everything in it that is agitating is going to draw your focus. Right. If instead we go into this environment going, it's going to be hostile, all of it, it's going to be included, but understanding what is relevant to your performance and what is not relevant to your performance, what is an avoidance-based ask for your brain versus what is a pursuit-based task, and what is actually required for you to play well. All of this stuff can be noise. I'm not saying it's comfortable. I'm not saying it's not really bad at sometimes, but that doesn't mean that you can't play a very free, well-executed golf shot, which you might notice they waited for the crowd at certain times, but they know what's at stake. And if you accept what's at stake and the consequences of both winning and losing before you get there, again, now you're not asking your brain to save you from failure as you're trying to pursue success in what is a really, really adverse environment.
Well, I was fascinated, and I want to get to another question about the differences in the different vibe of the two teams. But I was fascinated to read or hear, maybe it was in the press conference, where Shane basically said to his caddy, as he was walking up to the 18th green, he vocalized the idea. He said something in the effect of, I have a chance to do something incredible right now.
That's right. This might be the best moment of my life, I believe was the words he used.
And that gave me chills because I thought, there's talk about awareness.
Totally.
Like, as you say, like he wasn't pretending this wasn't significant. And I think that's a great takeaway for a lot of our listeners because, whether you're going into your club championship or you're trying to qualify for something that's elevated your heightened your senses. There was a guy in the deepness of it, acknowledging it, and as you say, Ray, like saying, yes, I acknowledge this, but now I'm going to get down to the task at hand.
That's right.
To me, it was very much a metaphor, if you will, or a microcosm, actually, of the differences in the two teams.
I would just, if I can just pull that thread real quick out.
Yeah, take it.
There is a certain, so if we were talking about like, why would humans even put themselves in a position like playing a Ryder Cup or something? Right?
Exactly.
So why? Well, the reason why is because when you are in that situation with those consequences, with the pursuing something that is important to us and doing so freely, it rings a bell for us as human beings in a way that very few things can.
Yeah.
Right. So if my guess is if Shane had missed that putt, but he played it the way he wanted, he would have been dissatisfied with the outcome, but satisfied with his, and you saw this in a lot of interviews, like, hey, I lost today, but I really like how I played. Right. Yeah. That we call type 1 regret in psychology, which is there was something I wanted, I went for it, and I just regret that the outcome didn't go the way I wanted to. The opposite of that, which I think there's probably a layer to this for a couple of people in the Ryder Cup, is type 2 regret, which is not only do I regret the outcome didn't go well, I regret the fact that it never had a chance because of the way that I did something where I either held back, I did it in a scared way, I didn't approach it at all. An example in kind of just like general life is there's that person, I'm attracted to them, and I just didn't go talk to them because I was worried that they might reject me. Right. So not only do I regret the fact that I didn't actually get to try to establish race, I regret the fact that I was too scared to do something. And now I've got 2 layers of regret instead of just one. Right. For Shane in that moment, not only did he make the putt, which is great, win the Ryder Cup, what a cool moment, but the fact that he did it in an authentic, and pursuit-based way resonates in a way like that's why humans go into those situations. Yes, is there the risk that you might screw up and people will blame you? Like, I mean, I'm sure the US team is just getting destroyed on Golf Channel the last couple of days. But the reason you would get into that high stakes environment is to feel the thrill of, I went for something I wanted to, and there wasn't a guarantee, not because there was.
One thing, so cool stuff, man. I love this. Do you think in a way that Shane Lowry, in an unconscious way, was practicing acceptance in terms of that instead of trying not to do something, leave it short, whatever, make himself think a different way, he was in essence accepting what was going on in his body and just going with it. I mean, and what I'm pulling on here a little bit is that I've just been reading some Carl Rogers. And one of the things that Carl Rogers says is that when people become whole, when they start to accept themselves, they accept that, yes, I'm angry. It doesn't mean I'm fucked up. I'm a weak person. I'm just angry right now. And there's a reason for it. So they accept where they're at and move through it. I don't know. Do you see how those things
for our
connect?
listeners, Carl Rogers is the father of Rogerian psychology, where we see ourselves and others with unconditional positive regard, which is another way of saying acceptance of everything about us, right? And it is a fundamental human psychological need for us to make change, that we are accepting of our flaws and ourselves in all these different ways, right? So my guess is that Shane there was a lot in the environment, both internal and external, that he went, that's what it is. I'm just going to accept it, which then gave him the room to go, okay, well, what do you want to do with this putt? Right. And that, again, so it's very difficult for us to operate freely if we are not accepting of all that comes in our internal and external environment. And if you're talking human growth and development and change over time, there's a layer of acceptance and kindness that is far more valuable than judgment and being at the end, at the whip's end of our own kind of whips and thoughts and feelings.
And the idea that the fact that I still find fascinating is the fact that he was hyper aware of the circumstances.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I want to bring it down to the club level again. This is somebody, another one of my friends. Actually, Tim, you know Al Martin. Al Martin claims that Tim once saved him from quitting golf. So, and this guy is he's a super nerd, and happens to be he was my senior better ball partner on Monday. So he's a guy I play some golf with. And he had a question. He's a big fan of yours, Ray. So if you don't mind.
Sure.
He says, when I play my own ball, I feel relatively little pressure and generally perform solidly when it counts. In team formats, however, I notice some different tendencies. I actually perform better when my partner is in trouble. Well, not always. But when my partner, easy there, Al.
I frequently perform better.
I can perform better.
Yeah.
But when my partner, that's right. Not every time on Monday. Anyway, he says when my partner is in good shape, I tend to check out mentally. On short putts in team games, especially around 5 feet, I feel much more pressure than I do in singles, and that's the only time I've ever experienced something like the yips. Question: why do you think these dynamics show up so differently in team play, versus individual play, and how can I better manage the pressure of maintaining my focus regardless of my partner's situation? Which is kind of tying into our Ryder Cup discussion.
Yep. One of the primary conversations I have with people playing in team events, Ryder Cup, Solheim Cup, President's Cup, is, are you willing to accept the fact that, to your friend's question, your performance now impacts other people?
Yeah.
Their success is now tied to whether you can also produce those outcomes. So what means is there's a higher risk, because not only are we vulnerable to failure and success, so is somebody else.
It's shared vulnerability.
It is shared. It's collective vulnerability, right? So this is team sports. And in golf, very rarely do we play team events relative to other sports. And so therefore it's different, and it's palpably different. So what that means is, if you want to operate more freely, more often, without it being so conditional, this shot versus this situation, means I have to be really willing to accept the fact that when I screw up, other people are going to be affected by it in various different ways. right? So one of the conversations I have with players beforehand is have the two of you, before you go play, giving each other permission to fuck up, pardon my language. Because if you don't, the other person is going to be protecting you from themselves, in which case then nobody's playing freely enough
and affecting their own performance.
That's exactly right. So my performance
because of what
becomes,
they think you're going to think.
yeah, my performance becomes compromised because I'm trying to not compromise yours.
Yeah.
Right. And so what you see with the best pairings is both players are like, yo, dude, rip it. Let's see where it ends up. Wherever it goes, I will deal with it. Do not apologize to me wherever this ball ends up. Right.
Yep.
So there's a layer of that to the team event. Another analogy I might use, or at least example from golf, is a lot of players will tell me when I am stuck in the trees and I have this tiny of a window, I always play these shots great. And by always, we mean frequently. And the reason is because there's no other option than to play it freely. And so the situation forces us into a state of acceptance, right? So if my partner has blasted his tee shot out of bounds, I have to play this well. So I might as well go for it. It essentially means my back is against the wall, which feels less vulnerable to us. So because the deck is stacked against me, I might as well go for it.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge is, well, what do you do when this deck is actually stacked in your favor? So players often tell me the most straightforward chips, the most straightforward putts, the most straightforward, I'm 100 yards out, I have a perfect number with a wedge, are the ones that bring me the most anxiety. And the reason is because we bring the least level of acceptance to variability
to the outcome. Well, if I could jump in, you said this to me. I was having this discussion with Ray. And one of the things we talked about, and I asked you about, as I get closer to the green or when I have a shorter putt, and you said when the make miss paradigm shows up, the model of as you get closer, your expectations go up and your acceptance of a poorer shot goes down.
Yeah, or an unwanted outcome, right? So why do people feel anxiety over a 3-foot putt, which even for handicap golfers is one of the highest percentage success rates? Why do I feel? Because my level of acceptance for missing is really low. Now I have asked my brain, do not screw this up while I'm actually trying to make it. And my survival protection first brain is going, you got it. I'll do the best I can for that. And the primary mechanism from our brain for protection and survival is anxiety. And the yips, by the way, the yips is just the physical manifestation of anxiety. That's all it is. So it's not some mysterious, anomaly. It is your brain operating on anxiety. That's what makes the physical motions jerky or whatever. It's very predictable.
Boy, it would have been interesting to know what the hell was going through Scotty Scheffler's mind when he had that shot on Saturday afternoon, a very routine wedge, and oh my God, he blocks it out to the right. But one of the things that GSL and I, we've played in alternate shots. The most stressful events is we have a rule. We say, never say you're sorry.
Never say you're sorry. I'm just going to trust that you're trying your best, and that is going to include some variability of execution. We will deal with it as it goes. We have, I work with a variety of teams that are sport oriented, and the teams that perform the worst are the ones that are always worried about screwing up somebody else's whatever. Yeah. It is something that is going to happen from time to time when people are just trying their best. But if you're protecting against it, meaning another way, it's unacceptable. Now you have people playing through anxiety. And anxiety is a protection-based, avoidance-based mindset for us that ultimately disrupts our ability to pursue freely.
I want to just quickly, before I let you go, this is something I've wanted to ask you for a number of years. Around the idea of distraction. And in your book, you've talked about that. So I wanted to gain some clarity. When you say distraction, are you talking about, you're standing over a putt and your brain, jumps quickly to, will I make or not make this? Or how will it impact my score? Or were you actually talking to some degree about when we intentionally try to distract ourselves, like Timothy Galway, back in the day of the inner game of golf, he talked about all kinds of exercises in which you say you focused on the tee and Titleist or whatever, or you were humming or 1, 2, 3 to try and distract, the self one, the ego part. So your self-con.
Yeah, distract myself one so that self two can operate, right?
So yeah, I wanted to get your viewpoint on that.
Yeah, so one of the things we know unequivocally is distraction is not helpful for us. Right? If you think about anxiety, it is a state of distraction because I'm preoccupied with the future. We know that anger and frustration disrupt performance because they are dwelling on the past. What we see from our brain is again, based on how it is designed, it's designed to know what counts and what matters and what is relevant. And the more I try to distract it from that, I am applying cognitive power to things that are not relevant to what I'm doing. So the question I would ask somebody is, why do you feel the need to distract yourself from whether you make or miss this thing? Right.
Well, what about the idea of using, if you will?
Yeah, these distraction techniques are not effective. If I
Okay.
was just being very straightforward, the research is also very clear on that. I address it over several pages in my book, that they run out very fast. And the reason they run out really fast is because our brain realizes very quickly, you're trying to distract me from the fact that there's risk involved with this.
Right. And it's inauthentic.
It is inauthentic, and eventually we figure out we're lying to ourselves because our brain is designed to figure out when we're lying to ourselves. It's kind of like if you're experiencing anxiety to the point where you're yipping putts and you're changing putters, you may get some temporary relief. Most of the research shows us it's going to last somewhere between 30 minutes and 30 days before you're right back to where you started and your brain figures out. This is the same thing with a different tool in my hands.
I was going to say that's the lifespan of a new putter. One of my the book is called Golf Beneath the Surface. It's been out for a couple of years, but people are discovering it all the time. And in a book that I've chewed up, and it's got lines all over the place.
I've seen it. It is so dog-eared.
It's got stuff everywhere.
It doubles for kindling. I know the prices of Firestarter are going up with all the geopolitical changes. So if they need it for that, they can.
I'm sorry, is that one of the Firestarter tariffs?
Yeah, exactly.
One of my favorite quotes. One of my favorite bits from the book is from Ben Hogan, and you quote him in the book saying, Hogan's talking about how his attitude changed and how he began to feel that he could count on playing fairly well each time I went out. He said, I guess what lay behind my new confidence was this. I stopped trying to do a great number of difficult things perfectly because it had become clear in my mind that this ambitious over-thoroughness was neither possible nor advisable. And that's a quote from 1946, even before Tim and I were born. But I think that's so telling that he stumbled upon that.
So that's from his book on the
Five
golf
fingers.
swing.
Five fingers. Five
fingers,
lessons.
yeah.
5 fingers.
Five lessons as a golf swing.
5 finger discount.
It's toward the end. And what's funny is most of the people that I know have read that book are looking for a way to perfect the golf swing. And they blow over the fact that he said, actually, my golf swing and my performance and my confidence stabilized when my level of acceptance for imperfection increased.
Exactly.
All right, so it's a mindset shift, not a golf swing shift.
Exactly. Well, listen, let me just, to sort of wrap this up the way it began, the flaps are out. We're the approach speed is set. The over the numbers is in sight. Golf Beneath the Surface podcast with Chase Cooper. Wisdom. I'm not sure. I can't really figure. Are you guys doing? You're not doing it weekly. You do it every couple of weeks.
We try to do it whenever we can around our own schedule. So it is by definition inconsistent right now. It will increase as we get out of the golf season professionally. I can tell you that.
Well, listen, man, it's always great personally and professionally having you with us, and hopefully you'll come back sooner than later. I mean, we have to ask you, but if you would come back again, maybe prior to the next golf season, Dr. Prior, that'd be great.
Well, that would be great. We'll take another flight sometime soon.
Absolutely. Take care. Fly safely, young man.
Yeah, thanks very much.
See you guys.
Raymond Prior. How big is that? You know, I don't even know how he carries that brain around in that head of his, because he's got like a normal-sized head, but his brain has got it's too much weight.
You're going to make him hang around to listen to all that.
Yeah, you're right. Keep talking.
Just go.
All right. See you later.
You know
guys.
we think highly of you. There's Dr. Raymond Prior, everybody. On the Carl Morris podcast a month and a half or so ago, I listened to Brent Rebus, who I've gotten to know, by the way.
Nice.
I ran into him in Montreal. I was there for a tournament last week.
Oh, yeah.
And I was talking to Brent about this program, this Par for Success. Go.parforsuccess.com. That's the number 4/Humble and Fred. And we had Chris on the show, Chris Finn, the guy that invented this program. Not that I was skeptical, but I wasn't sure what could be done. And it's only been 3 weeks, and it's 6 days a week for about 15 or 20 minutes at a time. And it's not. So right now I'm in the mobility phase of the program, which is to get all those parts. Like I've been rolling around on a lacrosse ball on my in my thighs, on my neck, my supraspinatus, on that part of your shoulder. And you do these. It's only about 8 exercises every day. It takes about 20 minutes. And I can tell you, and again, not just because they're affording the opportunity, but I can tell you, I have noticed 2 things. My hips are less constricted, but more importantly for me, my lower back, that lumbar spine, as it's been explained to me now, like that's not supposed to twist in the way that I've been twisting it, because for a lot of guys our age, because our hips are restricted, what happens is the mobility in your hips, which is supposed to be there and is there when we're younger, starts to seize up as we're older. And then what happens is you have to now recruit your lumbar spine to help you turn, which is why for me, maybe you, a lot of right-handed golfers, my lower left back is always sore, particularly after I play. So I can report to you STDs that after 3-ish weeks of doing this, that is significantly reduced. I'm telling you.
Cool.
And only all stuff that I've been doing with a foam roller and a lacrosse ball. If you're interested, check it out for yourself. It's go.par4success.com/humbleandfred, and you can sign up for a free 45-minute consultation. I'll tell you, the conversation I heard on Carl's show prompted me to reach out to them. And it might do the same for you guys listening, but I can tell you, it's almost weird. I'm so used to being sore on that side, particularly that side, that I'm kind of walking around and I'm like, it's almost like, did I miss something? Shouldn't I be in more pain than this? Anyway, that's what I'll tell you. That's all I have to
It's
say
cool.
about
I mean, the cool thing is that even at our vintage,
Yeah.
when you start doing things that address, like really positive things that address issues that you have, the change is quite amazing, really. Like I had serious hip pain for a couple of years, and so I started to do yoga. Brooke Benny, Bamalam,
Bam-o.
work with him. And so now I do Monday to Friday, get up, plug the kettle in, get on the floor, and 20 minutes later, I'm done. And it's really made such a difference. But it's kind of like what you've said quite often, GSL. Are you interested in getting better, healthier, stronger, or are you committed?
Yeah. Well, I was talking to my coach. I have a coach there named Josh, and I said, I don't understand. Like, I've been doing yoga, and going to classes in the off season 3 or 4 times a week, and in golf season once or twice. Did yoga yesterday as well. Do you know this phrase, pinning and stripping? If you've ever gone to a chiropractor or a physiotherapist, pinning is basically if I take my thumb and put it in let's say the top of your lats or whatever, like a pressure point, that's pinning it. So you pin the trigger point, but stripping
That's when it hurts, right?
That's when exactly. So if you imagine, like on my hips, they always hurt in that fleshy spot, kind of around where your belt buckle is. So that's the pinning part. The stripping part is when you move around on it. So what a lot of the exercises in this program are basically you take a lacrosse ball, find that spot that hurts, and then just roll on it for a minute every day. Yeah. And eventually, like I went from like making like whimpering noises to not, like it just hurt.
Yeah, I know, I get it.
All those spots that golfers hurt in, hips, lower back, shoulders, your rotator cuff. And so all you're doing is pinning and stripping those, but every day. And I can tell you, it's hitting areas like yoga is great for flexibility and a whole body, mind. I feel great when I do yoga, but this is very specific for golfers, especially for golfers of our age. Before we get out of here, so any more, I wanted to get if you had a couple more thoughts about the Ryder Cup. I know you hinted on something that I feel, which is the behavior was unprecedented, but what are your thoughts?
I think that, it's not an original thought, that so much of it starts with the appointment of Luke Donald as captain. The way he just had them so prepared right from what Raymond was talking about. They knew going in that the that the crowd would be, vile, loud, abusive. So they went in there expecting it.
Yeah.
But the other level other level of preparation they made in terms of like having, cutting off the light coming in, special linens, even special shampoo. I mean, that's next level, but also the analytics. But I think I could just pick up, but by listening and watching Luke Donald talk to the interviewers, he just was composed, in control. They had a plan. I love the thought that they had a theme even.
Yeah.
Whereas Keegan Bradley looked like the proverbial deer in the headlights. His body was electric. And I just think that there's a lot of blame being put on Keegan Bradley, but I think it starts with the PGA of America for just not giving him the right time, the focus, and and right from the start, I maybe just think that Keegan Bradley was too young for this. Like he just had to eat his words. We're gonna kick fucking ass. I love the picture of Shane Lowry. He's got the Ryder Cup. He's got the flag over his shoulders, holding the Ryder Cup, and there's Keegan Bradley's words behind him.
Yeah.
So I just think
I
it started
agree.
with leadership.
I think that it starts. I think now, I agree with everything you said. What's one of my favorite things about it is in the last 40 years, there have been 20 Ryder Cups. The Europeans have won 14 of them. The Americans have won 6. And yet every year they come into this Ryder Cup convincing the Americans that they're the underdogs, that the Europeans are the underdogs. Like it's so,
Yeah.
they're so good at this game. I mean, we could talk for an hour about the specifics, the analytics, and the pairings, and the culture. But that's really the biggest trick. The trick, that little trick that they pull every year, which is, oh yeah, they're so good, and we're just here to see if we can compete, and it's just ridiculous. Yeah. I want to talk quickly though about what's disappointing as a golf fan for me. Is how Trumpism has spilled into, like the PGA of America head.
Well said.
Whatever his name is, saying things, well, I didn't really see a lot of bad behavior, but of course, when the players act like that, it was just complete deflection. It would have been, I would just love to hear one person in charge say, you know what, yeah, that was really shitty. We're embarrassed by that. We hope that's not what we want to have people think of us as Americans. But back to Keegan.
Agreed. Sorry, just interject quickly. I haven't seen any ownership by the PGA of America or anybody like that.
Yeah.
Continue, sir.
Yeah, like the PGA of America, like pretending that it didn't happen is so Trumpian.
Yeah.
Pretending that what we saw we didn't see, and even Paul Azinger saying, I respect Rory, but his behavior wasn't any better. What, dude? They threw beer at his fucking wife, Paul. It's a whole different world. The things I said this on the Humble and Fred show. I've been watching this game a long time. What I've never seen before. Yes, it's one thing to chirp the opposing players or cheer for a bad shot. That's been done before. But the noise they were making just before McIlroy hit his shot, that's why he got pissed off. It wasn't just that they were saying horrible, disgusting things to him. He was basically saying, fucking let me hit it. Give me a chance to hit this shot. So that's what my takeaway from it was that was unprecedented and sadly kind of become the way that we act now because of the world that we live in.
Well, I agree with you 100% on how Trumpism was reflected in the fan behavior, because it's win at all costs. It doesn't matter what it takes. I mean, I'm getting like fired up just talking about it. It's just like, you just look at the deep fake AI video of Chuck Schumer and the horrible shit that they pretended he said. And they're putting that out to people as if that's what really happened. I mean, come the fuck on. It's just brutal. And, and people feel like they have permission now to act like that. And because it's win at all costs, they're the enemy, whatever it takes. And that is just not on for me personally, culturally, and certainly not in the game of golf. yeah, if someone hits a bad shot and, you could like say, yay, that, he hit it in the water, that's fine.
Yeah, that's been
But
done. That was done.
yeah,
That's been done for years.
yeah. But to actually try and disrupt someone's swing as they're going. Yes, golf tends to, people who aren't golfers say, oh, it's too genteel and blah, blah, blah. But that was not the culture of golf, and that saddens and angers me.
Yeah, and listen, and take fair play, as they say in the UK. Fair play to the team, USA on Sunday. They played great. They made it exciting to watch. And I don't know what the solution is. I think maybe Keegan Bradley should have been playing. I mean, he's a great golfer still, but I think that they are out. I think they're down 2 points every time this thing starts now, because the Europeans. The difference between the Europeans and the Americans for me is this: the Europeans look to me like they were a bunch of guys on a boys' trip. Like when they take each other's head in their hands and they put it to each other, like that's different. That's more than a team. That's a brotherhood. Whereas the Americans looked like a bunch of uptight professionals, and all they have to lean on is this. Is USA. All they've got to lean on is we're the USA. People, we tell ourselves we're the greatest country in the world. So how could we lose? Because we're the USA.
Exactly. And what it made me think about was the Summit Series, Canada and Russia in 1972.
Yeah.
Canada went in that thing and they just had to show up. Not that the American golfers were thinking that, but we got this. We're the most passionate. When the chips are down, we can come up to it. And Sunday, in many ways, they did show that.
Yep.
But like Canada learned overall is that there's a larger skill set. There's things that we need to do in a better way. And the European team has nailed it, right down to the pairings, to, knowing who tees off on what tees that's going to work well. And just how they ham and egg it is just amazing. But to your point, there's also, I love that picture of Justin Rose and Tommy Fleetwood with their foreheads together.
Yeah.
That just speaks volumes of
That's
that sense of
teammates,
togetherness. Yeah, that sense of togetherness. I got you, brother, and everything. That's beautiful.
Well, that's what I mean. Like to me, the Europeans are more of a brotherhood.
Yep.
Maybe that's, again, the culture of that team was born in the 80s with Ballesteros and Faldo and Montgomery and Langer et al. And the difference is the Americans, again, all they have to lean on is, well, we're Americans. And on paper, the funny thing is, I like all those American players.
Oh, gosh, yes.
I hate their team, but I love the players.
I know exactly what you're saying, but here's what I just thought of, and I'm interjecting here. I also think it's part of a reflection of European culture. They're just so less hung up on image and just everything like if you see TV in France or anything, like TV that everyone sees, it's so much more open and free in the way people talk and
less uptight.
Absolutely. It's a more culture that's just like people are more accepting of each other, the way we show up and in our emotions and what we feel about
100%.
each other, and even intimacy between men, for God's sakes.
Yeah, 100%.
They're allowed to show that.
Keegan Bradley lost me on Friday when he did the Trump dance with the fingers that look like you're jerking guys off. Like when he did that, I was like, you got it. Well, that's what it looks like when Trump dances. He looks like he's.
I was thinking like more like farmers and cows,
yeah, well,
but there you go.
He's looked like he's just jerking off some tall guys. Anyway, that's it. So we're running out of time. We got to go. Next week on next week's show. I'm going to try and get a hold of DeMarco and see if we can't book him for next week. But also next week, I will reveal the fact that over the last month, my handicap has dropped faster than it has at any other time since we've been doing this show. I'm no longer scratch Jason. I'm now back to scratch. Nice. I'm going to reveal what has helped me. There's two things. One was a Carl Morris thing. And the other is a character I started following in the middle of the summer online that I'll be going to see in person. I'll explain the whole thing on the next episode. In the meantime,
The big reveal.
Big reveal. In the meantime, Dr. Raymond Prior, thanks to him.
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor, Tim O'Connor, o'connorgolf.ca, thanks to you. And of course, the Humble and Fred Show produces this program each and every week we do it. And we wish you a happy fall. The fall golf season is unbelievable. It
Oh,
really
yeah,
is.
my goodness.
Like it's the best weather of the summer.
Well, here in Southern Ontario, it sure is. I hope
Amazing.
elsewhere.
All right. So enjoy your week. We'll see you 7 days from now.
Way on down